From solid takedown defense and get-ups to taking himself to the ground, Dricus Du Plessis' takedown defense is all over the place, and it's going to need to be on point when he fights Khamzat Chimaev, by far the best wrestler he's ever faced. In fact, Dricus actually doesn't fight a lot of wrestlers. He's a champion with 2 title defenses, but he's only gone up against 2 wrestlers in his entire career. Those are Brunson, who honestly is the only true wrestler he's fought. The other is Robert Whittaker. In this high-stakes fight, going from fighting Brunson and Whittaker, the guy who Khamzat absolutely smashed in the first round, to fighting Khamzat Chimaev himself is going to be a very different level for Dricus. He's never fought someone who shoots takedowns and grapples the way Khamzat does. Not even close. Khamzat is a chain wrestler with supreme top control and excellent submissions. How is Dricus going to defend that early onslaught from Khamzat Chimaev? First and second round Khamzat is a nightmare to handle. There's something to be said about the first round takedown from Khamzat. Nobody's ever defended it. Whittaker, who has excellent takedown defense, could not stop that takedown. Kamaru Usman could not stop the chain wrestling from the takedown. Li Jingliang, Kevin Holland. With Gilbert Burns, Khamzat really wasn't trying to wrestle the same way, so it's different. Against Dricus, he's absolutely trying to take the fight to the ground and destroy him. Not only has no one stopped that takedown, but every single one of them has either been submitted in the first round or had to defend some type of choke from Khamzat. Whether it was the rear naked choke against Kamaru Usman or Li Jingliang, the face crank against Whittaker, or the Darce choke against Kevin Holland. Every fighter has had a difficult time on stopping Khamzat from what he does best. With Dricus' strength and his awkward style, can he be the one that counters this dominant first round from Khamzat? Well, let's look at some of these fights here. Against Brunson, the best wrestler Dricus has ever fought. Now, generally, you don't want to be throwing kicks at a wrestler, but Dricus doesn't care about that. He fights by his own rules, and he will throw kicks at the wrestler, which he did against Brunson. In fact, multiple times in the fight. Double roundhouse kick. Starting with the right, the left kick was especially telegraphed. Brunson caught the kick and took the fight to the ground as Dricus tried to roll and escape out of it. All Brunson did was just sit on top, and it put Dricus in the position where he's under Brunson, fighting for his own takedown in order for him to stand up. Not necessarily for himself to take the fight to the ground, but on his way up, Brunson did a very good job of countering this by pulling his hips away and throwing in that right underhook. Dricus wasn't paying attention to his position when he was trying to stand up, and once he gets to a single knee, that's when Brunson uses that left overhook and right underhook to tip Dricus to the side, muscling him to the ground and holding top position in side control. Dricus wasn't paying attention to his position and posture, and you need to have both when you're fighting someone like Khamzat. And generally, Dricus doesn't have the best balance. He gets out of position and loses posture many times, not only in trying to get up from the bottom, but also throwing punches and the striking. Dricus overall doesn't have the best balance, and you need to have good balance when you're fighting a good wrestler. That could be the main reason Dricus loses to Khamzat, is him getting clumsy and imbalanced, toppled over by the stronger wrestler. So Brunson gets into side control on top. He's keeping all of his body weight on top of Dricus' chest, pinning him to the ground. Even a strong fighter like Dricus is gonna have a hard time pushing Brunson off of him when he's laying on his chest like that. But man, Dricus is smart. He swings momentum into the position so then he could throw Brunson off of him. So he kicks his left leg up, pushing Brunson. So as he pulls his leg to the mat, he swings his upper body forward and bench presses Brunson off of himself. He literally bench pressed Brunson with momentum. The man is as strong as an ox if he can just get enough space to apply that strength. And by doing that, he captures the half guard. Brunson just laying on top of him, threw a few ground and pound shots and stuff, but it's just looking to keep top position and not allow Dricus to get to his feet. So from half guard, Dricus bumps him up, escapes the position, and shrimps into Brunson. This is something he does a lot in fights. Whenever he's taken to the ground, he likes to shrimp into his opponent, hip escaping and rising into an underhook, using that to stand up. Giving up his neck, you're going to see him do that multiple times throughout different fights. And that can be countered by Khamzat's Darce choke or Bravo choke, both of which he's used against Kevin Holland. And no one Dricus has fought is skilled with a Darce or Bravo, right? The Bravo choke would be putting his arm under the arm on the right side and then around the neck. The Darce choke is the opposite. It'll go from the neck following through under the arm. So it's essentially going from 0 to 100 for Dricus to fight against. And by giving up his neck, Brunson goes for the guillotine. He doesn't try to keep the position. Dricus is standing up, defending with his left hand, but posting to stand up with his right hand. Then Brunson does something that Khamzat would never do. He jumps the guillotine, goes on his back. Dricus easily pulls his head out of it. Now there's multiple moves here that Khamzat would have done better than Brunson. Firstly, he would not be pulling a guillotine and getting on his back. In fact, I think that's a dead move in MMA now. Usually gets the guy throwing the submission into a worse position. If you're going for a guillotine, keep it standing, go for a high elbow. Pulling the guillotine to the ground is way too risky, and fighters these days are so good at defending against it, it's not even worth it. Khamzat would not do that. I think in this position right here, where Dricus is posting his right hand to the ground as he's standing up, Khamzat would have thrown a Darce choke right there. The same submission he beat Kevin Holland with. The Darce choke is especially effective here because it goes for the submission around the neck, but also keeps top position on the opponent from standing up. You could pull them to the mat, acting like a headlock, or the fighter can roll with it, returning the fight to the ground. So that's another thing I think Khamzat would do better here. And most likely, Khamzat's not going to just lay on top of Dricus without advancing position and throwing more ground and pound shots. Now, of course, Dricus could just hold him and stall it out, but Khamzat's always making an effort to advance his position on the ground to the most dominant that he can possibly get. And I think he'll do the same thing against Dricus. So there will at least be more effort from Khamzat on attacking Dricus when he's on top than Derek Brunson did. And while on the ground, eventually they get into a leg lock position. Brunson defends it, and now Dricus has to escape the position yet again. But this time, with Brunson getting the back. He's trying to get his right hand around to the neck, throws a left hand for ground and pound, so he is getting busy with his attacks, most likely how Khamzat would. And as Dricus is trying to stand up, Brunson throws in a right hook around that single knee on the ground and stops Dricus from standing up, keeping the position. He has a seatbelt grip around the body, right arm over the shoulder and left arm under. After turtling, Dricus tries it again. He tries to stand up, even though Brunson has that right hook in. And honestly, there was nothing stopping him from throwing his left hook in there as well. Well, actually, the only thing that was stopping him was his own left arm. He could have let go of it, throw the quick hook in there, go for the neck to get Dricus to focus and defend against the choke instead of the hooks, something that Khamzat most likely would have done there. It would have been a lot easier, better position, without the effort of what Brunson does next. So instead of going for both the hooks, Brunson lets go of his single hook, throws his legs up in the air, and with momentum, cradles Dricus by grabbing onto that leg and rolling him to the ground. Very high level move from Brunson, but it only put him in the same position that they originally were at. So it's an effective move, but it wasn't that efficient. It was a very high effort, high level move just to get into the same position that they were because he didn't go for both hooks, right? For Khamzat, he wouldn't need to do that. He would never need to go for some move like that because he would have gotten the back in that position. And then Dricus starts standing up and Brunson looks like he just doesn't know how to stop him from standing anymore. He doesn't throw in the hooks. He doesn't attack the neck. He doesn't throw ground and pound. He doesn't try to control the position. He literally stands up himself, right arm getting around the neck. He goes for a rear naked choke with no control at all. He's literally just letting Dricus stand up. Goes 2-on-1 on the choking arm and just spins out of it. Comparing that to Khamzat's level is just very, very different. Like, Khamzat would never let someone just stand up like that. Unless it's like Gilbert Burns and he just doesn't want to go to the ground with him. Against Dricus, he would never do that. He would never let Dricus just stand up the way Brunson just did there. So Brunson's rushing forward, throwing punches the way he usually does, rushing the opponent with all of his power. And Dricus shoots a counter takedown against all that aggression, and you think it would actually work. But he just didn't have enough power to throw it forward and counter the momentum of Brunson, so when he shoots a takedown, Brunson topples over him, with Dricus essentially taking himself to the ground and putting himself into full mount under Derek Brunson. That would be a game over move if he ever does this against Khamzat. If Khamzat's rushing forward with punches and Dricus tries to shoot a counter takedown against him, it put him in one of the worst positions possible. Fight is over. Not only full mount, but his arm is under Brunson too. He can only defend himself with one arm, but Dricus goes to defend himself the way he can best, and that is to give up his back. He has to. There's no way he's going to be sitting under Brunson, defending ground and pound with one arm. He needs to move and rotate and roll around, whatever he can do, and see if the position gets any better. So he gives up his back, and Brunson doesn't even flow with him at all. He doesn't throw in the left hook. His left leg is just out there. In this very position, Khamzat would be looking to get both hooks in, get the back, and choke him out. So there's already been like 2 or 3 positions like this where Khamzat could have potentially go for a finish, if not get it. So instead of throwing the hook in, Brunson focuses on stopping Dricus from standing up by hooking under the left ankle so he can't stand up with that leg, which is going to force him to keep himself on his knee. Good move from Brunson, but not better than throwing the hook. Again, he has the opening there if he really wants to. Dricus could be fast enough to defend it, but Brunson doesn't even put the effort to at least try to get the back for a submission. And Dricus just kicks out his left leg, getting out of that hook. And now Brunson's on one side with one hook in. He really doesn't have a lot of control here. So he hasn't gone for the choke yet, but he does attack with it. He has one arm around the chin, and his left leg is dangling out there instead of going for the hook for better control. And because he didn't have that hook in there, now his rear naked choke is on the side, as it gives Dricus enough control to rotate his body around. But then Brunson just lets go of the choke. Dricus didn't pull his arm off. He didn't fight his way out of there. Brunson just let let go of the choke and sat on top again. He does that a lot, right? Khamzat will be attacking that face crank until he breaks your teeth in. So because Brunson is just sitting on top, he has to post himself on the ground with both hands. That gives Dricus an option to attack the arm 2-on-1, so now Brunson can't even go for a rear naked choke, and Dricus is threatening the position of rolling out of it. And if Brunson had both hooks in, Dricus will not be able to roll out like that easily. So Brunson just accepts the half guard top position, holding Dricus to the mat. So from there, Dricus is hip escaping, he shrimps into him, which is something he usually does, throws in the left underhook and stands up using it along the fence. Double body lock, pushing Brunson to the fence and throwing the left elbow to disengage. Very good stuff from Dricus. Not the greatest from Brunson, honestly. I'm looking at this from a Khamzat standard, so very high level grappling standard, and Brunson is just not doing a lot of stuff that Khamzat would. So here in the striking, Dricus throws a left parry into a right hook, eliminating the right hand of Brunson and also putting his focus on that side instead of the side of the right hook. But the punch is slightly telegraphed and Brunson ducks under it. You would think he would shoot a takedown here as Dricus throws his entire body at Brunson, but Brunson doesn't commit with a takedown. Now Dricus did have the position of an elbow frame, which he uses to get away from Brunson. But when he collided with Brunson, there was at least an opportunity for Brunson to try to go for a takedown, which Khamzat most likely would have. Now striking wise, Khamzat could use that opportunity to line up a straight shot through the center as Dricus is disengaging. But one of Dricus's best abilities is to understand the fight and adjust throughout. Where maybe he's not the most technical fighter, maybe his form isn't the cleanest or anything like that, he can adjust throughout the fight and shows good fight IQ. So now knowing that Brunson is going to duck his head under punches, he's going to trigger that out so he can line up his shots as Brunson's head is lowered so he can get around the target to the temple, behind the ear, and all those different vital areas of the head. He lands the left hook. Looks like Brunson's going for a takedown. His eyes are on the floor and Dricus disengages, switches stances to throw off any potential takedown. So very good defense there from Dricus, and he throws a fade out left hook, which just falls short from landing. Dricus switches stances forward, throws a left parry into a now lead right hook to the head, but Brunson ducks his head under it again, and Dricus gets slightly off balance. Brunson still doesn't go for a takedown, but the interesting thing there is, because Dricus overextended and dropped the punch as he threw it, in what would usually be a striking mistake that can get him knocked out or taken to the ground, it lowers his arm under Brunson's chin, and he throws the elbow up into it, using it as an elbow frame of stopping Brunson from even going for a takedown if he wanted to. Now, it is possible that Brunson could have shot even under that, like a very low shot, just like Khamzat does. But it's actually very creative and in Dricus' own way, good takedown defense from him. This man's plot armor is insane. That's like the main character's sword slips out of his hand and he accidentally nudges it in midair to perfectly deflect the enemy's sword attack. Bro threw an overextended punch, and it happened to fall in place where he can elbow frame a potential counter takedown. So here Dricus throws a switch kick to the leg, telegraphs a strike, Brunson catches it, and transitions into a takedown. But this time Dricus did a good job of keeping his balance and pushing away at Brunson's head, escaping the first takedown. But Brunson throws some version of a Superman punch, clashes his forehead into Dricus' jaw, and falls to his knees, but he doesn't really go for a takedown there. It just looks like he tripped to the ground, but he's using that left underhook to stand up. Gets up to one knee, but look at Dricus pivoting around away from the fence so Brunson can't push him into it and work for a takedown. So Dricus pushes away at Brunson, escaping the takedown. And Dricus adjusts to the striking again. Instead of throwing the punch, he fakes his right hand to see the reaction from Brunson. Lowering his head, it looks like he was going to go for a takedown, but Dricus angles to his right, picks up his right hand to defend himself. So it looked like he thought it was going to be a punch, and Brunson sluggishly walks off. So then we go to the Darren Till fight, and Dricus is on his back. Dricus rotates and kicks off the fence, turtles into Till. And Till has his neck, he has the guillotine and tries to flip Dricus, but due to plot armor, Dricus gets flipped into the fence, which stops it, throwing off the guillotine for Till. Dricus pushes the legs away, which escapes the position altogether. Till stands up and allows Dricus to stand up because he is a striker and is more confident in the stand-up than on the ground. So then Dricus throws another telegraph kick. Now, Darren Till is not a wrestler, but he is a Muay Thai striker, and if you throw telegraph kicks against Muay Thai strikers, they will also grab onto the kick and trip you to the ground. So Darren Till still has that same instinct, just like a lot of other Muay Thai fighters. Throw a telegraph kick, he's gonna knock you to the ground. So he pushes at Dricus, gets on top, and Dricus is using that one butterfly hook to elevate Till. But Till establishes top position, throwing ground and pound shots, crushes the guard with an elbow, gets around to the side, and starts throwing a flurry of punches, which gets Dricus shrimping into him again. The same thing he usually does, but this time he's attacking the single leg to stand up with. This most likely is not going to work too well against Khamzat. Well, firstly, Khamzat doesn't usually give the position for fighters to do that, but even if he did, Khamzat would most likely totally sprawl out. As you can see here, Dricus only has one arm around one leg. That's not enough to stop the sprawl. He'll need both of his arms to grab onto it. But Darren Till is focused on causing damage with his striking, landing ground and pound shots. Khamzat wouldn't be doing the same thing. Khamzat would be looking to get the position first, then land ground and pound shots and go for submissions and stuff like that. So Dricus gets both of his arms around one leg, uses that single leg to stand up, and reverses the position, gets onto a body lock, and trips Darren Till to the ground, ending the first round on top. And then finally against Robert Whitaker, they both throw a jab, but Whitaker ducks his head under as he mixes it in with a blast double leg, taking Dricus off of his feet, blasting him all the way next to the fence. And Dricus try to counter with a butterfly hook, try to flip Whitaker, but Whitaker settles into side control. So Dricus defends the position from there by getting double wrist control, throwing in a knee shield in between him and Whitaker, and has one foot against the fence if he needs to kick off it. So he has like a multi-layered defense here to see what Whitaker does, but Whitaker's just sitting on top, posturing over Dricus. And Dricus lets go of all defenses, shrimps into Whitaker to rise with that left underhook, just like he usually does, and that most likely is going to get countered by Khamzat Chimaev. Whitaker pivots to the side, grabs around the body, and tries to stand over him so he can't stand up. But the difference there between Whitaker and Khamzat is Khamzat will be attacking the legs, not just the upper body. It's very similar to Khabib and Islam. They'll attack the legs as well as the upper body. You can see Whitaker here, he's only standing up while trying to keep upper body control, and that's not going to stop Dricus from standing up. Khamzat would be entangling the leg, would be wrist riding, pushing his body weight on top so Dricus can't just muscle his way to his feet, keeping the position and micromanaging for the next transition to inflict damage. So that is the breakdown of Dricus' takedown defense so far in the UFC, but in his last 3 fights, he didn't need to defend a single takedown, so it's a very different stylistic matchup with Khamzat Chimaev. But in my opinion, not just for Dricus, but I just think the middleweight division as a whole is not ready for that chain wrestling Russian style. It wreaked havoc in the lightweight division. The only 2 fighters in the middleweight division that had to fight against that were John Phillips and Robert Whitaker. And both those guys got absolutely destroyed. And just like at lightweight, because of Khamzat's style, I think the middleweight division is going to level up once he takes over. Dricus is giving so many positions that Khamzat has dominated other fighters before in. But Whitaker, Brunson, and Darren Till are just not even close to the level of Khamzat. And I think it's going to be surprising how far ahead Khamzat Chimaev is to the other middleweights. And frankly, that could even correlate how much better the welterweights are than the middleweights, which I believe they are. Even a short notice Kamaru Usman is better than a lot of the ranked middleweights. And I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you guys did, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.